Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Transpicuous News. Only a day later? Holy shit. It's February 16th, 2017, and apparently the hot topic this week is going to be about vaccines. We're doing another special report tonight about an article that just made my head go, boom. Oh, really? Okay. Here we go. Show you my screen. The article was released today in RT that physical disorder, not bad behavior. Study links ADHD to brain size. And I read that. At first, my head was like, no fucking way. I want to see the proof. So I went through and I looked up the studies. Scientists appear to have conclusive proof that ADHD is a physical condition and not just an erratic behavior in children. Evidence has been revealed in scans that show structural differences in the brains of sufferers. Okay, now here's the thing. The new study is the largest ever of its kind, may shed some light on this. It confirms that people with ADHD have differences in the brain structure and therefore suggests that ADHD is a disorder of the brain. This should help reduce the stigma of ADHD as just a label for difficult and troublesome children. Now here we go. The study involves scanning the brains of 1,713 participants purportedly with ADHD and 1,500 participants with no signs of any physiological difficulties. According to the scans, suspected ADHD sufferers had an overall smaller brain size, which also goes for 5 specific regions of the brain, including the amygdala, responsible for regulating emotions. All those of you with a child who has ADHD, you know the whole emotion thing. The differences were more prominent in children than adults, and the differences in size were attributed to slower development compared to fully healthy brains. Okay. Big note on this, though, and we'll get back to this in a second. Notably, no differences were found in the brain size of people who took ADHD drugs and those who did not. Well, of course, it didn't show any difference because they don't do jack shit. But we'll get back. We'll get back to it. Smaller brain size. What's the other medical condition that has been spotlighted by the media recently, over the last years? I've talked about it an awful lot last year in early 2016 when the news was breaking. Oh, anyone remember Zika virus? Now follow me on this. This is where my brain went when I started looking at this information. So I'm going to kind of lay it out for you. I'm going to put it out there for you guys. Mull it over, do some research, see what you think on this topic, okay? Birth defects, the facts about microcephaly, and of course that was the big push. Everything, Zika virus is causing this massive amount of microcephaly babies in Brazil. And of course there was a whole lot of us who dug real deep and went, yeah, I don't fucking think so. Zika virus doesn't cause physical health defects, ever, but you know it does. And there were 2 prime variables that were brought up. The first one was the DTaP, or the Tdap, depending on the brand, vaccine. that Brazil pushed on all the pregnant mothers. The second one was glyphosate and a few other herbicides, but glyphosate and the DTaP vaccine. Okay, well, let's just look at this DTaP vaccine. So we already have studies that directly link the DTaP vaccine to, microcephaly. We also have the links that link glyphosate to, let's see, here we go. Glyphosate and linked to birth defects. Linked also to microcephaly. See where I'm going with this? Now follow us through. What do glyphosate and vaccines have in common? Do you remember? This came out in September. It was big splash in September. Hold on. That's right. An organization in the States did several independent lab studies on various vaccines, from the DTaP to the pneumococcal to the influenza to the MMR. Every one of them was found to contain glyphosate. You see where I'm going? Wait a second. When we talk about, and as a parent, you'll know this, so you go in and you have a new baby and they weigh the baby and they measure their head circumference and they take their height, etc. And they put them on the little chart and they give you like, what percentile are they in? And the chart is supposed to be register normal, and you got, if it's a really, really big baby, he might be in the 100th percentile. If it's a little tiny baby, they might be in the 3rd percentile. I want to hypothesize something. What if the condition that we call ADHD, that has been labeled ADHD, is in fact the exact same condition that we label as microcephaly? The difference being that microcephaly is on this far end of the scale. You see the little babies with the very tiny small skulls. We've all seen the pictures out of Brazil. And maybe ADHD is way down here, where the physical symptoms are not so apparent. What if this is what we're seeing? Now, here's another little piece I want to show you. I decided to go looking because, of course, ADHD also leads into, start talking about autism spectrum disorders. And just like everything else I've just talked about on the autism spectrum, a lot of times when people say autism, you think the Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman and the Rain Man, extreme severe autism. And yet there's a whole range of autism and a whole range of things that fall under that umbrella, from the extreme to the not so extreme. ADHD has also been talked about being possibly, perhaps, on the spectrum as a disorder as well. And I went looking. Well, does microcephaly play a part in autism? Oh, guess what? Microcephaly does. When they did this study, this is a really interesting, and I actually read the whole study. Some incredibly interesting points were put out in this, and as usual, I will insert all the PDFs into the article that will go with this video on Removing the Shackles. The data from a series of 126 autistic children ages 2 to 16 years old, microcephaly was also significantly raised and found in 15% of the children. 15% of the children with autism in this study also had microcephaly. What causes microcephaly? Oh, well, we know vaccines cause the DTaP, we know for sure, causes microcephaly. And there's glyphosate. And the glyphosate's in all the vaccines. See the circle? Is this the big bullshit ring? If we keep labeling things separate and keep them separate, keep them all fucking separate from each other, it makes it much more difficult for people to pull the pieces together and start laying them out the puzzle where they can see the entire picture. I.e., it makes it a lot more difficult for people to prosecute and start slapping lawsuits down and going after these, your Monsantos and your vaccine manufacturers in the big pharma industry pool. And all your mothers out there and your fathers out there whose child has been labeled with ADHD and the school has pushed you into drugs. This child needs Ritalin. Well, guess what? It's not going to do anything, is it? If the child has ADHD, taking Ritalin isn't going to help. All it's going to do is drug the child. So maybe the teacher's job is marginally easier, but it doesn't help the problem. And when considering, we have also at the very bottom of the article, talks about there's currently a debate on how prescription medications, including the ADHD stuff like Ritalin, is being so massively overprescribed all over the United States. So one has to ask the questions, don't they? Are we looking at a much bigger picture than what we originally thought? These isolated pieces, are they coming together for us to see it as a whole? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I research the fuck out of shit. I would love to hear from people. What do you think? It just seems a little too neat, a little too coincidental for there not to be some meat on this plate. So think about it, folks. Like I said, I'll put all the links in there below, and I will talk to you again very, very soon. Bye.